All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to introduce our distinguished guests, panelists, and the first individual is Dr. Kalisha Bonds Johnson. Dr. Kalisha Bonds Johnson is an assistant professor at Emory University's Nell Hodgson's Woodruff School of Nursing, right here in Atlanta. She's also a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner at Emory University's Integrated Memory Care, a primary care clinic tailored to the care of persons living with dementia. She graduated from the University of Tennessee with her Bachelor of Science in Nursing. In 2012, she graduated with her Master of Science in Nursing from Vanderbilt University, specializing as a family psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Dr. Bonds Johnson graduated with a Ph.D. from Oregon Health and Science University. Most recently, she completed her postdoctoral training at Emory University from 2019 to 2021. As an associate professor, Dr. Bonds Johnson spends most of her time working on her research projects. The first project is to understand how healthcare providers and staff can assist African-American families with individuals living with dementia. Also assist the family with making healthcare decisions for the persons living with dementia. The second project is focused on understanding from the perspectives of the African-American adult daughters, their needs regarding navigating healthcare decisions for their parents living with dementia, while also considering the individual, family, cultural, community, and societal factors. Welcome, Dr. Bonds Johnson. Our next distinguished panelist is Clevevoya Gaston. Clevevoya is a licensed professional counselor and a national certified counselor. She obtained her Master of Arts in Counseling from the Georgia School of Professional Psychology. She is currently working on her Ph.D. in Marriage and Family Therapy at North Central University. Clevevoya is the outreach coordinator with the Faculty Staff Assistance Program, also known as FSAP, here at Emory University. She has been with FSAP 12 and a half years. She has been a psychotherapist for over 25 years and has worked with many diverse populations, which include homeless men and women, HIV/AIDS, perpetrators and victims of domestic violence, male offenders, pregnant substance abusers, and juvenile offenders. Currently, she sees individuals, couples, and families. Her area of specialty include marriage and family, depression, anxiety, cultural diversity, perinatal mood disorders, postpartum depression, stress resilience, intimate partner violence, substance abuse, physician and nurse impairment, and spirituality. Clevevoya currently serves as the 2023 president of the International Association of Employee Assistance Programs in Higher Education. She is a family liaison officer with the Emory Department of Global Safety and Security. Clevevoya's other professional associations include the American Counseling Association, the Postpartum Support International, and the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. Welcome, Clevevoya Gaston. And our final panelist is Reverend Tolton Pace. Reverend Pace is a native of Southwest Atlanta. He is a two-time graduate of Emory University, where he received his bachelor's in international studies with a minor concentration in Spanish and also a master's in public health. He has over 20 years experience in youth development, college and career readiness, workforce development, nonprofit management, and ministry. Tolton joined the Home Depot Foundation team in August of 2021. He is leading the foundation's strategy and investments within Atlanta. His focus is on veteran-related causes, the arts, healthcare, outdoor space, and workforce development. Tolton is also working with the Home Depot leadership to strengthen board participation with nonprofit organizations and continues to grow the Home Depot Foundation's Building Community Network, a network of 100 plus nonprofit organizations throughout Atlanta. He was recently appointed by Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens to serve a 2-year term on the city's local workforce development board, and he was elected to serve as chair of the board's Industry Partnership Committee. He recently served as co-president of the Caucus of Emory Black Alumni and as a member of the clergy team at Impact Church, a United Methodist congregation. He currently serves on the advisory board of the Villages of Carver YMCA. Reverend Tolton is married to his fellow high school classmate, Crystal, and they have one son, Roman Gabriel. I would like to welcome all of our distinguished panelists.
Are you ready for me?
Yes.
Perfect.
We first have Dr. Bonds Johnson.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay.
We hear you fine.
Perfect. Sorry, my lighting is terrible, but that's what you get when you're working in the clinic. So without further ado, my presentation is titled Giving Voice, Black Health and Wellness. The presentation outline is as follows. We'll talk about the 5 strengths of Black families. I'll discuss how each of these strengths relates to health and wellness, and then I'll provide a quote that I think sums up each strength nicely. When I was asked to give this presentation, the organizer was passionate about making sure the talks were strength-based. I immediately thought of the book, The Strengths of Black Families by Dr. Robert B. Hill, written in the 1970s. The book is in response to previous research of the time that focused on Black families without an understanding or a consideration for the context in which Black families live. These strengths Dr. Hill described are adaptations necessary for survival and advancement in a hostile environment. The strengths were identified in lower socioeconomic families or those with less resources, but I think they could be described in many Black and African American families today. So the first strength is strong kinship bonds, which can be described in the high frequency or ease of taking in relatives into one's household. This action of taking in family members is often seen with older adults and children. The idea of fictive kin also fits here. So, when you have someone that's like a brother or like a mother, there's no real blood relation, or we're not related by marriage, but there's just this bond there that makes them family. So you're probably like, Dr. Bonds Johnson, Kalisha, how does this relate to health and wellness? So when we're thinking about how this strength relates to health and wellness, do we give the same level of energy to ourselves that we do for our family? Am I exerting the same energy for myself? I am a recent mom. My son is almost 5 months, and I go hard already for him in the paint. I am giving it all. Am I giving that same level of energy for my own health? Am I sacrificing so much of myself to make sure he's good that I'm hurting my own health and wellness? And I want you to think about that as we continue to go through this presentation. When children, with children and with my son in particular, we're scheduling appointment when he was first born, at 2 months, at 4 months, and on and on and on. More than likely, parents are scheduling and keeping these appointments to ensure the health and wellness of the baby. But what about your own appointments? When is the last time you were seen by your primary care provider? Or better yet, do you have a primary care provider? If our parent needs assistance with appointments, we are often the ones going to the appointments, asking the questions, following up with the providers. Are we doing the same for our own health? For example, if you have a diagnosis of diabetes, high blood pressure, or migraines, are you following the treatment plan that was provided by your provider? When's the last time you checked your blood sugar? What was your last blood pressure reading? Are you taking your migraine medication as prescribed? As I was thinking about this strength, I was reminded of the flight attendant's warning if there's ever an emergency on a plane and the cabin loses pressure. The oxygen masks fall from the sky or from the ceiling. The flight attendant says to put your oxygen mask on first before helping anyone else put their mask on. We cannot pour from an empty cup. It's not sustainable. So Harriet Tubman is quoted saying, "Every great dream begins with a dreamer." Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. We need to use our strength, our patience, and our passion to ensure we are caring for ourselves so we can continue to live and reach for the stars. The second strength of Black families is a strong work orientation. It is defined by a strong emphasis on work and ambition. As I was thinking of this strength, I was reminded of the John Henryism hypothesis that states individuals who actively cope with psychosocial stressors in the face of low resources are more likely to exhibit poorer physical health than those with greater resources. The research is named after John Henry. I remember learning about him when I was in elementary school. He was an American folk hero. John Henry was said to have worked as a steel driving man, a man tasked with hammering a steel drill into rock to make holes for explosives to blast the rock and constructing railroad tunnels. According to the legend, John Henry's expertise as a steel driver was measured in a race against a steam-powered rock drilling machine. A race that John Henry won, only to die in victory with a hammer in hand as his heart gave out from the stress. There are two areas that I want us to emphasize with this strength. First, I'm directing my comments to each of you individually. We work, as Rihanna would say, but are we playing as hard as we work? Do we have the same energy, same plans to play hard, or at least to take a break? Many of us, myself included, have accrued lots of paid time off. Are you using that time throughout the year to rest, to recharge and regroup? Or is it just piling up without a thought or a plan for its use? Health and wellness are also focused on our ability to take time off. Whether it's a staycation or a vacation, we all need breaks. I mean, even God rested. For those of us that are familiar with the Christian Bible, he rested, he took some time off. So for those who are not able to travel, a staycation where you stay local is possible. Maybe still you're at home, but you found your favorite TV shows and movies to watch. You've ordered your favorite meals or cooked your favorite dishes, and you're completely unplugged from work. Might be just what you needed. I know I've started to get creative with this on short federal holidays like Juneteenth and Memorial Day. I don't typically travel, but I will intentionally unplug. For those taking a vacation, consider traveling somewhere new, whether it's a beach trip or staying in the mountains or traveling out of the country. Take the vacation, and when you do, again, completely unplug from work. No emails, no phone calls, no texts, no writing, no reviewing, no data collection or analysis, just rest, relaxation, and maybe trying something new, like an excursion hosted by an all-inclusive resort you're staying at. Oops, going too fast. Now, the second area I want to focus on is for those who support our health, specifically how healthcare providers like your primary care provider and their healthcare team work for your health. If there is one thing COVID taught us, without the consumer, without patients, without scheduled procedures, healthcare systems lose so much money. Are our healthcare providers working for us the way we work hard day in and day out for others? Are you heard? Are you believed and validated? Do you leave the appointment feeling better than when you went in? Are the strategies offered things you can really do? Do you feel like they get you, they hear you, and you don't feel like, do you feel like you can speak up and say something? If your healthcare provider isn't validating you, supporting you, and hearing you, if you don't feel like you can ask the dumb questions and get the right answer, it might be time to switch your provider. Quality care is vital to one's wellness and health. And if we don't trust the provider we have, we probably won't go and seek care. I would challenge us that we have healthcare providers that hear us and listen to us. If they don't, find someone else. I know, it's time consuming to find another provider, but in the long run, you'll thank me later because your health will be better because you'll be in a working relationship with a healthcare provider that really gets you and understands you. The first quote for this section is from Nelson Mandela. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. So again, we do all these really nice things for others, but we must remember to take time for ourselves, to live in a way that enhances your freedom, to live in a way that brings you joy and happiness. Let's feel well. Let's do things that make us feel well. The second quote is from Angela Davis. I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. And what I cannot accept, or what I do not want you to accept, is mediocre healthcare, especially if you are working at a large medical center or are at the affiliated university of a large medical center. Yes, people are burnt out and tired, and care may not be exactly like it was before COVID. It may never go back to like it was, but we all should still feel heard, validated, and supported. Adaptability of family roles is the third strength of Black families. This strength is described as a source of stability. For example, there were times when Black men couldn't easily find work outside of the home. So Black women worked, and the man stayed home, maintained the household and the children. The idea is that Black family members aren't so tied to gender roles, but rather it's about the entire family surviving. When I think about the health and wellness and this third strength, I think about how flexible we can be. We are nimble. We can think outside the box. Have you tried something new or different to support your health and wellness? Has a suggestion been brought to you, but you decided to adapt it? One example that comes to mind is how chefs have adapted soul food and made it vegan. Are there other ideas that come to mind or ways to adapt something you do or love in a way that makes it healthier for you? Along with being adaptable, we are also resilient. I'm reminded of a keynote I heard at the Gerontological Society of America's annual conference last year. It was author and journalist Isabel Wilkerson. When asked about resilience, she described resilience as bouncing a ball against the wall and the ball bounces off the wall. But her comment was, wouldn't it be great if no one was bouncing the ball against the wall? Wouldn't it be great if we didn't have to be so resilient? But in society, we do. So we must be thoughtful of our health. The quote I found for this strength is by past President Barack Obama. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Let's be nimble, flexible, and create new ways to be healthy and whole. Our wellness depends on it. High achievement orientation is the fourth strength, which speaks about many Black and African-American young adults attending college despite coming from lower socioeconomic situations. I was one such student, and my life has forever been changed because of my pursuit of higher education. The pursuit of higher education speaks to our dream to learn more, to have more, lifetime learners. This desire to achieve can be used when we think about our health and wellness. How many of us Google everything? I Google everything. Ask our provider additional information, reading a book, reading an article, checking out the latest and the greatest. Do we do that regarding our health? If not, we should. There is so much information about health and wellness literally at our fingertips. There is a need for more information. Are we coming to the appointment with our questions? Are we speaking up in support groups and sharing our experiences? Are we being honest with our therapists? Are we making the most of the resources we have? Are we reviewing your visit summary that is given to you after each health and wellness visit? Are we thinking about the future? Do we have a living will, an advanced directive? Are we even familiar with what these documents are? If not, ask someone about them and then find the time to complete them. Your future will thank you. Another way we can use this strength is when we talk about our health and wellness with others. Good friends, good colleagues, good providers and staff will share resources. Are we vetting these resources? It takes time to vet the resources, but I think we will be pleased if we do. I'm consistently reading reviews about things that are suggested to me. Let's take the same skill set we use to excel academically and use it with our health and our wellness. It isn't where you come from, it's where you're going that counts. A quote by Ella Fitzgerald really spoke to me about our desire to achieve beyond where we started. I once saw a quote that said, if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. Let's dream big and set our expectations high for our lives, which includes our health and our wellness. The fifth and final strength is religious orientation. Religious orientation is the belief in a higher power, which has helped us get through many challenges in life. Sorry, got distracted by the chat box. Religious orientation has been seen as a mechanism of survival. How many of us have a favorite scripture or a hymn that gives us peace when we feel distressed? I know I have a few songs that are my go-tos that I listen to when I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. Religion and spirituality have been pivotal in our health and wellness. Please make sure you find these areas that are helpful to you and incorporate them in your daily lives. The Black church is and has often been seen as a resource, not just for spiritual and religious health, but also for health and wellness. How many of us have attended a health fair at our church or received information about health and wellness? There are so many potential resources that are offered for health and wellness in our communities. Make sure to seek out these events and attend them. And then my final quote for this presentation is by Oprah Winfrey, and it states, "Every time you state what you want or believe, you're the first to hear it. It's a message to both you and others about what you think is possible. Don't put a ceiling on yourself." When I saw this quote, I was reminded of the importance of faith in our lives. We must believe in ourselves, and this belief is powerful and can change our view and improve our health. As I conclude my presentation, I hope something I said resonated with you, made you think, or challenged your thinking. Thank you. And do we have any questions? Which I think we put in the chat or save for later.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Clevevoya Gaston.
Well, good afternoon. I am Clevevoya Gaston. I am the FSAP Outreach Coordinator here at Emory University, and I am just excited to be here to share and talk about giving voice, cultivating a culture of Black mental wellness. Our behavioral health and our mental wellness matters every day, not just in February, and not just on Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a celebration. It is an American holiday to remind us of our courage, our strength, and freedom of who we are. And this should be celebrated daily, not just several times a year. Today, our Juneteenth celebration here at Emory tells us we should be celebrating who we are every day. And we have a space here at Emory to celebrate our heritage and our culture. Think about it. How often are you celebrating yourself, celebrating who you are, celebrating what you bring to life, celebrating what you bring to Emory, celebrating what you bring to your families, celebrating what you bring to yourself? How do you open and hold space for mental wellness on a daily basis? Ask yourself, what am I doing to foster Black mental wellness? How do I think about my mental health and mental wellness as a part of my daily life? Opening space means we are giving ourselves permission to take care of our mental health, our mental wellness. Holding space means that we are present in the moment with what we need, what we value, and we are following through on that. So think about how you are opening and holding space for your mental wellness and your mental health. Think about why mental health is important. Why it's important as an overall holistic perspective of who you are. We go to the physician to get checkups for our heart, for our medical conditions, but what about our mental wellness? What about our mental health? Let's look at some strategies for opening and holding space for healthy thoughts. Give yourself permission to celebrate you daily. Think about your schedule. Think about what you're doing, and I can hear you. Do I have time to take care of my mental health? Do I have time to engage in some of the things that Dr. Bonds Johnson just talked about? My schedule is so busy. I have to take care of my family. I have to take care of work. I have things at Emory I have to do. I have to take care of maybe extended family. You're celebrating everyone else, but what about yourself? How do you give yourself really the space to say, you know, I'm worth it. I bring value to who I am, to the world. So thinking about it from a values perspective, we prioritize what we value. So how can we open and hold space to prioritize and value our mental wellness so that we can celebrate ourselves? We have to value that first before we can even get to the celebration. Embrace what you can control. You know, lots of times we talk about, you know, focus on the things that I can't control. But what about the things that you can control? Your self-care needs. Going to the physician, going to talk to your therapist, setting boundaries, saying no, not overcommitting. Adopt a good enough and more than enough thinking pattern. And you may be asking, what is that? Do I just, you know, get by? Well, it's good enough. Oh, no. This is, I am good enough to achieve my goals. I am good enough to follow through. I am more than enough. I have value. Think about what you have in your lives that reinforce that you are good enough, that you are more than enough. How often are we engaging in those practices? How often are we thinking about who we are and the value that we bring? cultivate curiosity and a growth opportunity perspective. What are you curious about? What sparks your interest? What do you get excited about every day? Not just a few times a year, but every day. What keeps you growing? And yes, sometimes we may turn right when we're supposed to turn left, but then how do we grow and learn out of that? How do we say, okay, this is the lesson that I learned, not that I'm a bad person, not that I don't have value, but how can I grow and learn from this? Now, let's look at strategies for opening and holding space to create positive emotions. Emotions are how we feel, and that can come from our thought process. Explore practices that invoke joy, humor, inspiration, and again, curiosity. So on a daily basis, what brings you joy? Do you laugh? Are you always just complaining? Are you one to see the glass half empty always? Yes, things happen that are out of our control, but how do we become a little more resilient? And I know resilience can be a difficult word, particularly now when we have so many things going on around us. You know, resilience doesn't mean that I always have to be strong and I always have to take it and I always, can't be in the present moment with how I'm hurting and take care of myself. It's okay that you're not okay. It's okay to take a break. And we're going to talk about taking a break from, the negativity and social media, those things that bring us down. But what brings you joy? Who are you inspired by? Are we tapping into that every day? Create positive experiences. For example, a computer file with pleasant images, music, YouTube videos, a playlist, things that uplift who we are. Spend time in pleasant environments with nature and museums. Atlanta has lots of rich history and culture that we can engage ourselves in, such as the Apex Museum, the Human Rights Center. Are we creating a space, opening a space where we can engage in what's all around us? Engage in activities with positive mood intention. So for example, and some of you may have been in some of my workshops when I talk about this. If you're on the phone with Aunt Sally or Uncle Bob, and I, apologize if you're on this Zoom and that's your name, but if you notice that every time I get off the phone with Aunt Sally, Uncle Bob, and I am feeling more sad, more hopeless, then how can I set some boundaries? One, with myself, and two, with Aunt Sally and Uncle Bob, because it's hard to set boundaries with other people if we don't set them first with ourselves. So think about that. Think about the things that we have in our lives that create a positive mood intention. And how can we set healthier boundaries to make sure that that happens? Let's look at strategies for opening and holding space to connect and engage in healthy support. Prioritize and utilize community resources that impact healthy mental wellness practices. Do you know what's available in your community? What about right here at Emory University? Resources that reinforce that you're valuable, that you have strength, that you have courage. And then sometimes when you don't feel that way, or it's not your best day, that you can go to a place, even here on campus, or connect with a campus resource that reinforces that you're valuable and that you matter. Prioritize healthy relationships. We always say, make sure you have a support system, but I like to say, make sure that you have a healthy support system. Friends, families, colleagues who are uplifting, who listen, that can hear you, that can see you. That is so important. Prioritize and seek resources in our community. How do we engage in and support our community? We have so much collectively that we can share and give to ourselves and to each other in our own community. And that is very powerful. Prioritize the goal to make a difference in our community and the lives of others. You are valuable and you do have something to share. How are we engaging in resources that enhances liberation support? Who is your healthy support system? How often are you staying connected, setting boundaries, using your voice? And you may say, you know what? I don't really know how to find my voice. Maybe I lost it because of something that happened many years ago, when no one ever told me that I had a voice or taught me that my voice was important. There are resources here on Emory's campus and in our own community that can mentor you and guide you for you to have a voice and know that you are important and to take care of yourself. Remember, you are not alone, and it's okay to ask for help. Reach out to the Emory Faculty Staff Assistance Program. I know that this is a shameless plug for FSAP, and I am the outreach coordinator, making sure that everyone is aware of our resources here on campus and that FSAP is available. Actively engage with your personal and work support networks. Know who they are and where they are. Talk with your manager and other mentors when needed. And you may say, well, how do I get a mentor? Here at Emory, there is a mentoring program, but if you don't know how to access it, ask. Ask family and friends or community resources for assistance. We should be more intentional about creating the kind of support we need as a community. We must identify activities and people that are not healthy versus the ones that are. Put those as a priority. This may involve taking some people out of your support network and bringing others in. Here are some final thoughts. We are all in this together. We are all in this together as we are taking care of ourselves mentally and as a community. My part, your part is important and has purpose in the local community and here within the Emory community. We can thrive and not just survive. See, Juneteenth is about recognizing that our ancestors, they survived, they pushed through, they survived, and they set the pathway for us not only to just survive, but also thrive. And we need each other to do that. And last, Juneteenth is to be celebrated every day. We are worth it to celebrate every day. And I would like to leave you with Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Now, I'm not going to read it because she is much more expressive than I am in her own work. So I am going to share. So if you would give me a few minutes to get this loaded. And this is to encourage you as we move forth in celebrating who we are, celebrating our Black mental health and our Black mental wellness. Let's see here.
The issues which face us all are not just how to survive. Obviously, we are doing that somehow, but really how to thrive. Really thrive with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. This poem is called And Still I Rise. Now, every person in this auditorium has gone to sleep one night or another, gone to bed one night or another with fear or pain or loss or terror, unhappiness, grief, insecurity. And yet each of us has awakened, arisen, seen another human being and said, "Morning, how are you?" "Fine, thanks, and you?" Now, wherever that abides, whether it's behind the kneecap or in the bend of the elbow or between the teeth, wherever that is, lives, there we will find our nobleness. Not nobility, I think that's a pompous word, but the nobleness of the human spirit, that we rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted line. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high. Still I. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cry. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your knife, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance? As if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thigh. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain, I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in time. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of a slave and slave. There I go.
All right,
Thank
Reverend
you.
Tolton Pace.
Thank you so much. Wonderful, Kalisha and Clevevoya. I'm going to work to share my screen with you here as we jump into this last segment. Stand by for our screen share. Hope everyone's doing well today. Let's make sure we get it in present mode for everyone and switch the display. All right, if you can see that, just a quick thumbs up on your screen for me or in the chat. Perfect, perfect, excellent, excellent. Well, again, so honored to be with y'all today. Thank you to the amazing presenters and hosts for the content that they've shared already, which I hope just to build on. It's amazing how we worked independently, but the presentations have amazingly interconnected with one another. So hopefully this will just be an addition or a strong emphasis to what's already been shared. So we're going to jump in here and just to give you an overview of what we're covering today and the time we have is I want to look at what we call the cat in the hat. Many of you are very familiar with the Cat in the Hat from the Dr. Seuss books. And whether you have your opinion one way or another on Dr. Seuss himself as an author and the context in which he wrote, we're not focused on that today. We're strictly using this as a backdrop, as an example for what it looks like to engage in kind of spiritual wellness and just general health and wellness overall. So that'll be our first thing today. We'll kind of dovetail that when talking about the Sabbath and what it means to kind of just take some rest, take some time away. And then last but not least, we'll share a few resources that you can use as you think about your health and wellness, both from a spiritual perspective and just an everyday practical perspective as well. So hopefully those will be some great tools for you to have as you move forward. Right? So as we look, the Cat in the Hat, many of you know this book, this kind of poem, if you will, this rhyme scheme very well, but I want to share it with you and I'll tell you why as we go into our time today. So I'll share here. It says, "Have no fear," said the cat. "I will not let you fall. I will hold you up high as I stand on a ball, with a book in one hand and a cup on my hat. But that is not all I can do," said the cat. Look at me now," said the cat, "with a cup and a cake on the top of my hat. I can hold up 2 books, I can hold up the fish and a little toy ship and some milk on a dish. And look, I can hop up and down on the ball, but that is not all. Oh no, that is not all. Look at me now. It is fun to have fun, but you have to know how. I can hold the cup and I can hold the milk and the cake. I can hold up these books and the fish on a rake. I can hold the toy ship and a little toy man. And look, with my tail, I can hold a red fan. I can fan with the fan as I hop on the ball, but that is not all. Oh no, that is not all. That is what the cat said. And then he fell on his head. He came down with a bump from up there on a ball, and Sally and I, we saw all the things fall. Why did I share that? Well, let me ask you this. Did any of you see yourself as the cat in the hat? Is that your daily kind of existence where you're trying to balance and do multiple things, whether it's family things, whether it's work things, whether you're trying to grow yourself professionally or otherwise, you find yourself trying to juggle and balance so many things. And for many of us, this was my story several years back until I went through a great leadership program that helped me to kind of reconfigure and redesign my thoughts around how I balance life spiritually and otherwise. But for many of us, as we talk about Juneteenth, coming out of our history, tragic and otherwise, we find ourselves trying to compete, trying to be better than the majority population or better than others, even in our own community. And so we think that we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do 10 things in order to be successful at those who might do 1 or 2 things. Or it could be from a family scenario where because our families traditionally have been ripped apart for various reasons, be it drugs in the community, be it crime, be it other things that have taken and broken our families apart, we feel like we have to do so many things just to make ends meet, just to keep the family together, just to cover, to make sure that the current generation or the next generation won't end up like the previous generations. So again, I don't know about you all, but I found myself as a cat in the hat. But let's use that as a context for how to find balance, how to find wellness in this space, again, spiritually and otherwise. So we'll take the 3 letters of the word cat for our focus today. And the first one is the C. As my friend Kristen Denise Hemingsworth would say, the couch and the altar. What is that all about, Tolton? Well, so many of us, we've talked about today the need for talking to therapists, to talk to those into mental wealth and wellness space. And it is indeed important to make sure that not only from a traditional historical perspective that we're going to church or we're going to a temple, we're finding ourselves in some faith-based community for that release, for that reprieve, right? To let things off of our chest, to find a space where we can kind of find some additional joy. And that's amazing. And that's what we get much of our foundation in, particularly as a community of African Americans. But it's also important, which has traditionally been taboo, to make sure that we find our space and our place and our time on the couch as well. And that is seeing a therapist, that is seeing a mental health professional. It should no longer be taboo in our community. We should not kind of tend to the old adage that, what happens in this house stays in this house, right? Or what happens in our backyard stays in our backyard. So long gone are the days of that, or at least we should be pressing towards where we can get beyond that. And we've seen it happen across pop culture, be it musicians, movie stars, athletes, or otherwise, where they're now declaring that mental health and wellness is important, right? That their spirituality is important, that they need to take time to commune with their creator, to get more in touch with themselves. So indeed, the couch and the altar, don't forsake one or the other. They're both majorly important. Whenever I do weddings for couples, I actually, through our counseling process, I encourage them to ensure that they go see a professional counselor as a process leading up to the ceremony. My process with them is usually more check-ins and touch base, but I again want to encourage them, make sure that you're going to see that professional provider. So the couch and the altar. The A, assess your situation. What does your situation look like, right? As we talk about balance and busyness, there's an old kind of saying that says, show me your checkbook and show me your calendar, or your checking account these days, right? We don't write many checks anymore, but show me those two things and I can tell you what's important to you, right? So how you plan your time, how you spend your money shows any given person and can show yourself what you spend your time on, what you might find most valuable, most important. So I would challenge you to see what you can give a pink slip to in your life. What are those things that you say, you know what, if I just kind of let go of that, I might have a better peace of mind. If I kind of rework this calendar over here and work in some more time with my kids over here, or my partner, or my spouse, or my mate over here, or my creator, or my God, or whatever that looks like for you, perhaps life would be a little different. Perhaps I'd have a little more energy. Perhaps I could find time to work on the things on the side that I wanted to work on. So look at your situation and see what you've got going on. I told you I was the cat in the hat before. And when I joined this amazing leadership program, it's a 15-month journey. One of the first core values we talked about was balance. And in looking at balance, I was busy doing lots of things like the cat in the hat. And I realized that in my meeting schedule and my speaking schedule, I was spending more time outside of the house doing ministry than I was at home, putting my son into bed, having dinner with my family. And I said, that should not be the case. And so I reworked immediately my schedule to say, and I told my wife this, I said, I am not going to be out doing ministry and doing work more than I'm at home. And so I told my boss at church, I told my team, I said, hey, we're going to limit our time to 2 times a week. That's it. So my days at home, again, should be more than my days out in the community. So again, I don't know what that looks like for you, but I challenge you to assess your situation and figure out how to find a little more balance in that scenario. Last but not least, as you figure out what that balance looks like, take time for yourself. And that's been shared today already. And we'll share in just a moment as we kind of close our time, ways that you can do that, right? How do you take time for yourself to refresh, pull away from the desk, pull away from the office, even pulling away from family, right? To take time for yourself so that you can pour more into your family and your friends for that matter. Whatever that looks like for you, it is indeed important to take time for yourself. I've got a good friend, Reggie Hammond, who does a lot of consulting. He says it like this: mind before grind. Mind before grind, right? We're always of this, I got to grind. I'm on the hustle. I'm trying to get things and making it work, which is great. We all want to be successful, and that's important, right? But as someone mentioned earlier, one of our presenters, even in our Christian faith, our Judeo-Christian faith, God took time in the creation of the earth, as you ascribe to that story, to rest. There was a 7th day or a Sabbath day of rest. And so that's where I'll kind of take us as we kind of wind our time down here together, is looking at this word Sabbath from a spiritual perspective. How do you reset? How do you refresh? How do you take time for yourself and your family to renew yourself and to kind of start over again, or to invigorate and invest energy into the things that you're doing? So first and foremost, we talk about Sabbath kind of from a Hebrew word, which means holy, set apart, to do something different, to pinpoint time that can be devoted or dedicated to one particular thing, right? How is it in our hectic world that we can do that, right? We're all busy, and we talked about being busy and what that looks like. How do we find balance from that? Well, Sabbath doesn't have to be a whole day starting out, right? It could be moments within your day. It could be taking a 15-minute walk. It could be pulling away from the desk, listening to your favorite song. It could be all these kind of small things. I used to go sit in my car for a couple minutes, right? When I was at the office in a different job. One of the things I loved at another job I had with a nonprofit, they actually required us to take a Sabbath day once a month. Most amazing time and most amazing investment I ever made. I would actually go to Emory and hang out in Low-Water Park, turn off my phone. I'd let the family know that morning I'll be unplugged for a few hours. We'll set up a picnic for myself, read a book, hand a blanket out, sit by the lake. Amazing, amazing time. So again, it may not start out with a day for you. Your schedule might not permit you to do that. Your role might not permit you to do that, but find small moments, 5, 10, 15 minutes. And as you invest those small moments, you'll be surprised that the more you commune with yourself and your creator, you'll begin to realize, wow, I can do a little bit more of this. I can do maybe minutes here, minutes there on the weekend. And then observing a Sabbath is not so much about the rules, if you will, as it is about your heart and your intention, right? So don't get caught up in, oh, I got to do it here, or I've got to do it there. It needs to be every first Friday of the month or every second Sunday of the month, right? It's whenever you can work it in, because your intent begins to kind of change and shift the course of your heart, because again, it change and shift the course of your mind. So whatever your motivation is, don't get caught up in the rules, get caught up more in the relationship of it all. And then Sabbath savers, right? What are these about? Well, don't underestimate your potential for burnout, right? We think we're super people, we're supermen, superwomen, super people, we can do it all. But indeed, like the cat in the hat, at the end, everything fell, right? And so it's only a matter of time before the things that we're doing and overextending ourselves can overtake us, right? Have a go-to prayer or scripture or song, meditation, whatever that looks like for you in your faith-based community. If you're more of a, as we call, a spiritual person, whatever that looks like for you, this should be something, maybe quotes, as one of our presenters shared earlier, right? Maybe you've got a YouTube motivational video that you go to, whatever that thing is. Find a way to get that in, maybe on a daily basis, every other day, when you wake up, before you go to bed, lunchtime, before you have your meal. Find a way to work that in. And as Clevevoya mentioned, don't be afraid to ask for what you need. Don't be afraid to ask for help, right? Super, super important. Last but not least, as we think about, again, resting, refreshing, replenishing, these are some amazing books that myself and one of my colleagues who's in the ministry have kind of read and recommended to others as we've done kind of presentations around this topic in the past. All amazing books, strengthening the soul of your leadership, leading from a healthy place. One of my favorites is kind of right in the middle there, Produced by Faith by Devon Franklin. If any of you follow pop culture, you know, Devon Franklin is now the ex-husband of actress Megan Good. He's an amazing producer in his own right, done all the movies that you might know, from Jumping the Broom to Karate Kid, you name it. And Devon in this book talks about being a Seventh-day Adventist and being in the ministry, and how being in Hollywood and trying to balance taking his Sabbath, whatever that rest day looks like for him and his family, and balancing the demanding schedule of Hollywood and taking leaps of faith to invest in himself from a spiritual perspective. So I encourage you to check these out, read these, find some quotes from these. I think they'd be a tremendous help for you and asset for you. Last but not least, please feel free to stay connected. You can scan this quick QR code. It'll take you to my information, email, phone number. Would love to refer anything to you in terms of resources, or if you need to chat or you need professional counseling resources, I'm happy to make those references available for you. So thank you for your time.
Great.
All right, I think it is back to me to sort of moderate this panel discussion. Let me see what view I want so I can see the people. There we go. So as I was thinking and asked to come up with a moderator question for the panel, this came to mind. As we remember our ancestors in recognition of Juneteenth, I'd like us to start our discussion by taking a moment to honor an ancestor or living older adult who embodies our topic of giving voice, Black health and wellness, mental health, and or spiritual health. And I'd also invite those of you who are not on the panel, if you feel like putting something in the chat, feel free to acknowledge, an ancestor, a loved one, someone that you think has just been vital in your growth. We all know we are standing on the shoulders of giants. I'll go first, and then, no, actually I went first earlier. So I'm gonna start with Tolton, then Clevevoya, and then I'll end it up. And then please, if you have any audience questions, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can either unmute at that time or put questions in the chat. So again, an ancestor, an older adult, an older mentor, someone who you'd like to honor when you think about Juneteenth. And maybe why.
Thank you, Kalisha. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, probably my dad. My dad passed when I was 11 years old, 5th grade, West End, Atlanta. And my dad was always investing in people. He was a consultant, traveled a lot, and no matter what he was doing work-wise, certainly he'd invest in people, but he always found time to invest in me and his family. And so I try to kind of use that as a model as we think about Juneteenth, and as was just earlier, thriving and surviving and living in freedom, right? That when we invest in others, when we kind of give away, right, we're able to give and pour back into ourselves. So I would kind of hold him up as that standard.
I love it. Clevevoya?
All right, so I have actually two. So my first one is my mother, Sarah Gaston, who passed away December 2004. So at a very early age, I was taught the importance of community and community support. And my brother and I, we were pushed out into the community to help others. Not that we had a lot and that we were rich, but my mother taught us that anybody can rise above their circumstances. And so as we were taught those valuable lessons, we went out into the community and helped others. And to this day, I have passed this on to my son. And the other person who actually took me in as their daughter is Ella Roundtree. And every day she is reinforcing how valuable our culture is, telling me stories. She was born in 1936. And so every day she is telling me valuable stories of her life and what it meant to grow up. She grew up in the South and the North. And so I hear valuable lessons and stories from both places, and just the encouragement. And, I think we mentioned this earlier, how important it is to encourage each other every day. And there is always somebody that you can share and give to.
I love it. I love it. I will add my grandmother, who I just am in awe of all that she has overcome. Her husband passed away in a car accident. My grandfather, my mother passed away in a car accident when she was in her 20s. So my grandmother in her 50s took in me. I was 2, my brother was 9 months, and never missed a beat from what I could tell. Like, I just thought she was Superwoman. And it's not till now as an adult that I'm seeing her age and the muscle wasting. She's 88 and recognizing, oh, wow, she is not going to be here forever. But I am just eternally grateful for her love, her love for family, her feistiness, even though sometimes I don't want to hear it. But I am grateful for the woman that she is. I often say my research is heavily inspired by my grandmother, because I don't think if I would have been raised in a community with older adults, I would care as much about older adults. But I truly want the best for my clients and my research participants, and I could go on and on, but truly, truly grateful. Again, this now is time for audience questions. Dr. Tolton, Reverend Tolton, sorry, I'm gonna go to you. I know we said first names and I can't help myself, but Tolton, I'm gonna go to you. I saw a comment in the chat that mentioned some confusion, and I think it was around your statement about mind before grind. If you could go into that just in a little more detail for us so we can make sure we're picking up what you're putting down.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think, for many of us, right, we tend to have this, what we call a grind or a hustle mindset, in the sense that, I've got to get the bag, right? I've got to make the money. I've got to put myself in position to do this or to do that, and all for various reasons, right? Maybe we grew up a certain way and didn't have all the resources that, our family needed. And so we want to make sure that that doesn't happen, or that history doesn't repeat itself, right? Or maybe you've lost a job before, and so now you want to make sure you do everything you can, right, so that you don't find yourself in a position where you're struggling for what you need. And so all of that, of course, is completely understandable. I think where we kind of the focus is, we don't want to work ourselves right into the grave, as kind of the old saying goes, right? So you can work so hard that unfortunately sometimes our kids or our spouses or partners might not see as much of us as they'd like, right? Or for example, your health might suffer, right? Because you're working so hard trying to do all the things. And so it's like, if you've worked so hard that you can't enjoy the fruits of the labor, then what good is it, right? And so just a reminder in that mind before grind to pause, to take some time for our mental wellness, our spiritual wellness, as we look at kind of social determinants of health. What are the things outside of just working and earning a paycheck that can replenish us and can refresh us and help us to reset? And so I think it's important that, we certainly care for us, almost like your car, right? Many of us, depending on our habits and practices, you should get tune-ups and oil changes on a regular basis, right? Every so many miles, or every so many months or years. And if we don't do that, then our vehicle suffers accordingly, right? But if we're able to do that on a regular, consistent basis, then our vehicles last longer. We're able to drive them further, right? We're able to get more mileage out of them because we've tuned into them, we've taken care of them over time.
I love it. I even like the car analogy. I've gotten much better. I had a car that I didn't, my first car was a little clunker, but I loved it. And I didn't check the oil regularly. My grandmother taught me how to check it with a little piece of tissue, little tissue paper, and check the oil. And I didn't check it regularly, and the whole engine blew, baby. I mean, so now I am consistent and on time about making sure that I get my oil changed. And so I want to do that same thing. I see some questions coming in. Lisa, I see your hand raised. If you want to come off mute, ask your question.
Yeah. So thank you for to all the panelists for the presentation. My question is, if you see some family member, friend who, let's say, for instance, seems to be addicted to video games, and this person is 24 and has a 4-year-old child, to the neglect of the child, like addicted, like goes to work, goes to school, comes home, plays video games like till 2 o'clock in the morning, till goes to work, drops a kid off, picks a kid up, but clearly this doesn't seem to be a cycle that's going to benefit the kid, because the kid doesn't seem to be getting any interaction with the parent because she's at daycare. Then the parent is playing video games, and then kid goes to bed, pick the kid up, start the whole cycle again. What would be a strategy to help that person say, well, maybe this is not going to be the best pattern for your kid?
So are you asking what's the strategy for the mother, or maybe a strategy for you to begin talking to the mother?
Both. Both.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, the game, and unfortunately, social media plays a big part in our generation, younger generation, and even some of the older generation today. And we have access to social media and games. And I think it's important to be able to, pull this person to the side to be able to begin a discussion about one, how they're doing, and
yeah, clearly
their practices about that. And, you know, you can't make anybody do anything, but, you know, when we start talking about neglect, then that becomes a more serious, you know, conversation. And if the child is being neglected, then there are some resources that may have to be contacted, you know, but, you know, hopefully you can pull this person aside and be able to begin a conversation. Like, you know, what is it that you need? Do you need help with some better parenting skills? How are you taking care of yourself? What resources can I help you with around that? And, you know, they may refuse, but you've done your due diligence around that piece. But here again, when it comes to neglect, then that's a different conversation about, okay, the child's needs are being neglected, the, you know, basic needs. We have to do something about that.
Yeah, I think her, you know, her basic needs, she's feeding the child, she's taking the kid to daycare. Those are getting taken care of. But I think, you know, she and her peers, this is the activities, and then, you know, these are violent video games, and this is how they spend their time. So she's not thinking she's doing anything out of the norm, right? Because if my friends with kids are doing the same thing, must be okay.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes, I mean, you know, I think this came up earlier in several of our, you know, presentations about mentorship. What I found is that young parents, and well, even some older parents, need mentors and lots of encouragement. They may not know how to do that. And so being able to, here again, if you are a positive influence in her life, she may be able to listen to you, not do exactly what you say and how you would do it, but you may have her ear, and you can begin softly with that. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I was answering some questions in the chat, so I'm not sure I caught all of your question. But one thing came to mind is the parent actually playing the game? Does the parent know how violent the game is? Because, you know, oftentimes we buy things because, oh, so-and-so said he had this, and this kid has it, and that child has it. And so we do things for our kid, wanting to make sure that they're not left out, that they have the same resources that other kids have. But has the parent played the game? And how does that mom feel about that game? I guess would sort of be my question, and maybe the angle I would take with it.
Oh, no, it's the parent who's playing the game.
Oh, God. So I totally.
Oh, it's the parent. The child is 3. The parent is playing the game.
And that's why you don't answer questions when you're in the chat. I'm definitely gonna refer to Clevevoya. I did answer a couple questions in the chat. We have, Tolton, I'm gonna pivot this to you. I don't know if we have enough time to answer the question, but it was about clarification on the confusion. My confusion was about, unless I missed it in his presentation, was how we're bringing faith, religion into a conversation about and around Juneteenth without addressing the use of religion as a tool of subjugation of enslaved persons for centuries. As I said, perhaps my expectations were out of alignment. Thank you though. So I thought it was an interesting and provocative question to bring in, given that we don't have a lot of other questions that came in that would take the time, but just wanted to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah, and that's definitely a topic. Probably you could have a whole separate session on there, right? And diving in, or, you know, a study around that. And so certainly, you know, with religion, with the Bible, as well as, you know, other notable books that have been used throughout history to validate, right, certain acts, particularly slavery in this case. And we know, of course, you know, that as we've studied and we've learned and we've seen for ourselves over time that, you know, many of those acts, particularly in this question, in this case, were not validated by that, right? And so you could get into a whole discussion about context and time and, you know, time and place and how those things came about and interpretations of those things over time and who wrote what books and all of that. So there's a lot that could be discussed around that. And so to answer a little more directly, so this conversation was not leaning in that direction. This was more so looking at how we can incorporate some basic kind of faith-based or spiritual practices and helping us with our health and wellness. So I'm sorry if it didn't quite hit maybe what you expected, but happy to certainly pull some resources that might, give some insight, additional insight on that for you and share that as needed.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for the question. We did have one additional question that I started to respond to in the chat and just wanted to open it up to the other panelists. It was specifically to me. It said, Dr. Johnson, are there any websites you recommend to get valid information about health conditions or issues or medications prescribed? And what I shared is that usually when you go to these large healthcare systems, they have websites that are worth following up with, or at least starting. Also associations, so like the Alzheimer's Association has a lot of resources and things like that. The part about medications, that's a little more challenging. And as far as websites go, you can sometimes search that medication, but usually you're going to get really good information either from the provider or the pharmacist when you go to pick up the medication if you're going to a pharmacy. Didn't know if anyone else wanted a chance at that question.
No, I prefer to you, Dr. Bonds Johnson, on that.
Wow.
Dr. Johnson?
Yes.
The reason I was asking that is because you stressed the importance of being able to engage with your health providers and to hold your healthcare providers accountable, which means you have to come with some information.
Oh, I completely agree.
I often find that they're not about giving you any information. They just say, here, take this pill. And I always Google, as you say, any medication that I'm being asked to take. And there are a lot of websites, WebMD and Healthline, a lot of sites will come up. So, but anytime you're Googling or looking at things on the web, you could find bad information also. So I just wanted to know if there were any websites that you particularly recommended or that you thought were more valid, because I find I can't depend on my healthcare provider to give me all the information I need.
Yes, that is often the case, and part of the reason why I stressed it, because I think even if you come with what you got from WebMD, I do look at WebMD. Hippocrates is another one I look at, but I think you have to be a healthcare worker in order to get access to Hippocrates. And then sometimes Healthline, I think was the other one. Even if you get that information, you have more than nothing when you're coming to the table. Because what I've seen in a lot of exchanges, especially with my grandmother, is that, like you said, they give you a pill. They don't tell you what to expect side effect wise or what to expect as far as, yes, the medication is working because X, Y, and Z happened. And so bringing anything, like even if you say, I Googled it and this is what I found, is this accurate? I think gets the conversation started, because sometimes when you think about it, providers often have 15 minutes, 20 minutes if you're lucky, maybe 40 minutes if you're at specialty clinics, depending on what's going on, to give you a whole lot of information. And so be it the provider's own bias issues, hangups, or just poor time management, there just isn't a lot of time. But I do definitely advocate for bringing your questions, bringing your concerns, even if it may not be the most up-to-date information. Just bring in something worth getting that conversation started. And so I think what you're looking at is a good start for sure.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I think at this point, we will probably wrap it up here. That was the last question, Dr. Johnson. Okay. We did want to, first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Veronica Phillips. I love Dr. Herron. She got the first name right, but the last name was wrong. It is Phillips and not Hill. I'm Veronica Phillips, a staff member here at Emory. Want to thank you all for coming and our fantastic panelists. We did want to acknowledge some of our co-sponsors and people that we wanted to thank for this wonderful Juneteenth event today. We wanted to thank the Emory School of Medicine, as well as the Emory School of Nursing, our co-sponsors this afternoon. Want to thank the Office of Equity and Inclusion, Dr. Cheryl Herron. Want to thank Natalie Fields and Kiara Jackson, who were wonderful in the coordination of this event. And again, thank you to our panelists. On just some closing thoughts here, I have a colleague at Brown University, Professor Elmo Terry Morgan, and he described African Americans as existential phenomena. Existential phenomena. You see, Black people weren't supposed to make it. We weren't supposed to survive, but we did. And we must. Because of them, the ancestors, we are. Because of them, we are. And we are obligated to take care of ourselves, take care of our health, our spiritual health, our mental health, our Black health and wellness, so that we are here and others will be here after us. When we are ancestors, we will know that we did the best that we could, and that those that are here, that they will survive. To me, Juneteenth is about the ancestors. And so I wanted to just leave you with those few parting words with regards to Juneteenth. Thank you all for coming. I think we have 2 minutes. So we have 2 minutes left. But anyway, wanted to thank you all for coming. Thank our wonderful panelists again, and thank our co-sponsors. Thank you all, the audience, for being here, because we need you. So thank you, and thank you for those wonderful questions. Take care.
Thank you, Veronica Phillips. We will get it right.
You.
We will get it right.
Thank you.
I'm going to put a plug in for FSAP. Wonderful, wonderful facility and organization that we have on campus. Outstanding, outstanding individuals that are over there. And I am proud to say I have used FSAP and they are fantastic. Please, if you need them, as Clevevoya was saying, they are there. All righty, I think we are heading out. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.